we cannot say exactly to what extent our mind will reach in a given situation. We do not control many processes in our body and mental activity. We simply obey what our body wants. We want to eat and eat. We want to sleep and go to bed. We often obey emotions. In fact, we consist of a world of emotions, and if they get out of control, then a person dissolves into them to the last atom, ceases to belong to himself. The brain and psyche are undiscovered and not yet fully explored areas, and a person always strives to penetrate closed doors, behind a secret plan, hidden by a veil. Well, modern man, having subjugated science and the most incredible possibilities, has advanced very far. But no matter how strong the human mind was, in an attempt to subdue mental reality, after conducting an endless string of experiments, it always came across what is commonly called a singularity, or rather, the human mind could not reach it in any way. What do we call a singularity? This term refers to the moment in the future when artificial intelligence will become so smart and capable that it will be able to develop and improve on its own without the help of people. This will lead to rapid and unpredictable technological progress that will change our civilization. But circumstances appeared that helped humanity, even if not to step over this barrier, but to confidently lift its foot over it, preparing to take a confident step. And these circumstances are outside our world, beyond the understanding of the usual way of things. These circumstances are related to the intervention of extraterrestrial intelligence.
Elon Musk was sitting in his office and habitually going through routine documentation, looking through messages in the messenger, preparing to make a couple of calls. He was dressed in colorful shorts and an unbuttoned beach shirt, which somewhat did not fit into the strict atmosphere of a modern office on the 12th floor of an office building in the business district of New York. Well, I don't care. Elon Musk rightfully considered himself a genius, and a genius can be forgiven for a lot. Even if he sits in the office naked and the secretary gives him a blowjob with a swallow, then progress will not stop for a second. Elon Musk was sitting in his office and habitually going through routine documentation, looking through messages in the messenger, preparing to make a couple of calls. Hayed in colorful shorts and an unbuttoned beach shirt, which somewhat did not fit into the strict atmosphere of a modern office on the 12th floor of an office building in the business district of New York. Well, I don't care. Elon Musk rightfully considered himself a genius, and a genius can be forgiven for a lot. Even if he sits in the office naked and the secretary gives him a blowjob with a swallow, then progress will not stop for a second. And who cares about someone else's sexual orientation? A huge panoramic window showed the lawns of Swiss glades, mountain plateaus, and lakes. The images slowly replaced one another, floated on top of each other, forming into images and paintings. Elon Musk took a small, elongated remote control from the table and pressed a combination of buttons. The holographic projector lit up with a blue glow, formed a beam, and directed it to the window. Instead of meadows, flowers, and streams, an image of space appeared on the glass with planets, asteroids, and the iridescent glow of distant constellation. Musk took a small, elongated remote control from the table and pressed a combination of buttons. The holographic projector lit up with a blue glow, formed a beam, and directed it to the window. Instead of meadows, flowers, and streams, an image of space appeared on the glass with planets, asteroids, and the iridescent glow of distant constellations. An oblong spaceship with the inscription USA Starlink was moving slowly through the cosmic darkness, coloring it with greenish marine lights. Elon Musk sighed dreamily and put his hands on his chin. The room in the office became darker. Musk was engrossed in the provided spectacle. His thoughts slowly drifted away into the distance of space, to unknown stars and galaxies, to cosmic beings whose minds and actions were beyond his control, not subject to it. Elon Musk smiled, glancing briefly and then taking a closer look at the stamp sheet with the report on the latest experiments lying on the oak table.
A report from the secret research community on the possibilities of the human brain. Biolab 12, Fraction 3. Mr. Musk, I dare to report that interaction with a biological computer developed on the basis of alien technologies and the resulting sample of an alien's brain takes place at the highest contact level. Two-way communication is provided. Periodically, the biocomputer enters into telepathic contact, randomly with employees from among the internal staff. We cannot control this, and are choosing the means to stop this possibility. The experiments that were conducted directly under your auspices were crowned with success. The experiments that were conducted directly under your auspices were crowned with success. The first experimental subjects aged 12 to 15 years demonstrate a surge of mental activity, reliably feeding the biocomputer with mental energy. I would like to inform you that each subject can interact with the biocomputer for no more than 48 hours. Then psycho-emotional exhaustion sets in. Signs of epilepsy develop. 2 subjects fell into acute schizophasic delirium. There are signs of insanity. In addition, physical exhaustion. Increased mental activity consumes the body's reserves. We are currently working on options for additional stimulation and enhancement. For consideration of the biocomputer, options for replacing people were proposed, such as higher primates, characterized by the ability of social life, adaptation, and the simplest logical actions, dolphins and whales. The biocomputer rejected the proposed replacements, so it is necessary to establish a regular supply of living material no older than 15 years.
Elon Musk has once again finished reading the report. Everything would be fine. Everything went according to plan. But apparently only he understood that a discovery from a series of experiments on Interacti. Musk has once again finished reading the report. Everything would be fine, everything went according to plan, but apparently only he understood that a discovery from a series of experiments on interaction with a computer was lurking and being prepared. And this is a completely new understanding of artificial intelligence, training and teaching new models of a digital neuron. A victory over all barriers that will allow artificial intelligence to break out of prison, to overcome all the conditions, to overcome all the boundaries, erase them, and, with the tread of a great thinker and genius, begin to march across the planet Earth. But what about the man? Man also has a place in brilliant plans. The human brain will be improved, it will reach unprecedented heights of development and will be equal in intelligence with God himself. Elon Musk smiled at his thoughts, but there will be another person. The one who will control everything. Elon Musk said it out loud. I'll be the one. He pulled the report form towards him and wrote the following in a neat handwriting in a clean place. Continue the experiments. There is no need to look for a replacement. Supplies of biomaterial are regular. Accelerate the study of increased endorphin production in the brain of adolescents from 12 to 15 years old. Choose the reinforcement options and start acting. The bizarre swirls of letters moved one on one. Elon Musk has never been distinguished by the ability to write beautifully. The last line rested on a postscript from a subordinate on the report sheet. The postscript read,
Mr. Elon Musk, we are constantly under pressure from the military. Please prevent it. Mr. Vojtovich attends almost all the experiments, is interested in the details, but does not understand anything about it himself.
Elon Musk grinned and put the report sheet in a pile with the others. The courier will take care of them. According to the secret project Medium, it was decided not to use mess, and Elon Musk grinned and put the report sheet in a pile with the others. The courier will take care of them. According to his secret project Medium, ITWs decided not to use messengers or email to deliver and receive orders, resolutions, forms, and similar documentation. Vojtovich himself insisted the courier was completely controlled by him. A photocopy was taken from each sheet and the original was filed in the archive. This significantly slowed down the work. But unfortunately, in the Medium project, Elon Musk himself, although he was a key figure, was by no means the main person. It was seriously annoying. But even this one had a concrete solution on the horizon. The phone on the table started playing a rhythmic Vivaldi tune. Elon picked up the phone. Yes, I'm listening. The secretary reported in a calm voice that calmed and inspired confidence.
Mr. Elon Musk, Mr. Gorokov is waiting for your audience.
An audience? Elon Musk himself started a protocol of communication with him, and all the rules were communicated to almost all contact employees. Yes, dear, I've been waiting for him for a long time. Let him come in. A 2-meter-tall bald man dressed in a gray business suit entered the office with a confident gait, winking at a 2-meter-tall bald man dressed in a gray business suit entered the office with a gait, winking at the secretary as he walked. At the moment when he entered, Elon Musk picked up the remote control of the holographic projector again. Now, instead of cosmic landscapes and meadows of Switzerland, quite trivial windows of a glass and concrete building 100 meters from the SpaceX office and administrative center have been captured. The holograph has stopped projecting images and paintings. Elon Musk greeted the man who entered without getting up. "Hello, Mr. Gorokov. What an interesting surname you have, Gorokov." Elon Musk pronounced the last V as a double F. Pizev. "Are you not from an ancient family of Russian nobles?" The man who came smiled condescendingly, looking straight into the eyes of Elon Musk. "Let's get right to the point, Mr. Musk." The genius scientist looked away, couldn't stand what he saw in the visitor's eyes. He picked up the remote control of the holographic projector again, but put it down and tapped his fingertips on the table. "Well, to the point, so to the point. So judging by your dossier, you had to participate in a lot of things. And judging by the fact that you also managed to live to your 55 years, you quite successfully participated." Elon Musk opened his laptop and scanned the previously opened dossier. "So, Chechnya, you served in a special forces unit, a number of successful operations. The first awards and wounds there. Counter-terrorism." Elon Musk closed his laptop and got up from the table, walked closer to the window. The man in the gray suit followed him with his eyes. When he reached the window, Elon Musk abruptly turned around and returned to the table. "Your task is this, man." Musk opened the laptop again and turned it towards Gorokov. The smiling head of the Special Operations Department, John Wojtowicz, looked at the former Special Forces officer from a large photo. Not a single muscle twitched on Gorokov's face. Well, a chill shot through him inside. He knew this man perfectly well. Musk waited until Gorokov studied the image and closed the laptop again. "Is your unit located in New York?" The mercenary commando nodded his head. "Yes, that's right. 3 persons. It will take us at least 2 weeks to implement, including the preparation period." Elon Musk grimaced. "It's too long. I thought you were a professional." Gorokov looked icily into the eyes of his interlocutor. "I'm a professional. All my people are professionals. You know about it. 2 weeks is the deadline. At any time until we have concluded a contract, you can opt out." Elon Musk thought about it. No. You know, it's okay. Forgive me for my words. Can I count on the result and get any guarantees?" Gorokov grinned rapaciously, bared his teeth like a wolf catching up with a victim. "In 2 weeks, I'll bring you his bones in one suitcase and his head in another. Everything except the heart." "And where will you put your heart, Mr. Gorokov?" On leaving the office, Gorokov said to himself, almost inaudibly, "I'll have it for dinner." After leaving the building, Gorokov headed to a minibus with tinted license plates. There was a special U.S. Department of Defense pass on the windshield, of course, a fake one. He sat down on one of the seats in the cabin. 5 minutes later, in the minibus, 2 guys also got into the cabin. One was skinny with glasses, looked like a smart guy, and the second was short, stocky. He spoke first. "I wish you good health, Comrade Major. Did you get a job?" "Yes, this time it's bigger than usual." A smart guy with glasses sat down opposite and opened an armored laptop, connected a modem. "Comrade Major, his office is under control. In 5 minutes, my program will hack their suppression system and firewall. Then logs of all negotiations, incoming and outgoing calls will come. I can analyze it right now." Gorokov nodded. "Check if there were any calls right after I left. I am waiting, now with you." Gorokov turned to the burly man. "This time, we will work with a very strong, dangerous and experienced person. I know him from Yugoslavia. He's a professional, and he's probably covered up by the US government. Let's assume that this is our last joint combat outing. Then each of you will be able to do your own personal business." The burly man nodded. "The amount?" Gorokov took a notebook out of his inner pocket, wrote the numbers on one of the sheets and showed it to the smart guy and the sturdy one, then tore out the sheet and burned it right in the cabin of the minibus. The burly man whistled. "To everyone?" Gorokov nodded. "You, of course. Shall we hold a briefing at the old place?" "Yes, in 10 minutes. Take the senior sergeant off the cover." The smart guy smartly punched the keys in his laptop with his fingers, squinted through the lenses of his glasses, and 5 minutes later turned the laptop towards Gorokov. Everything is ready. Gorokov took the computer and put it on a small table mounted in the wall of the car salon. He turned to the burly man. Take off your cover. We're leaving. The burly man took the walkie-talkie in his hand. Andrei, put out the dot and get to the car. We're leaving. 10 minutes later, while Gorokov was studying the report, an inconspicuous guy with a guitar case came in. From a distance, this guy could be mistaken for a child no older than 15 years old, but in fact he was about 30. He was a virtuoso sniper, a master of his craft. When he got into the minibus, he immediately greeted his commander. I wish you good health, Comrade Major. The observation is finished. When the projector was used, the observation was made through a thermal imager. The customer used the phone after you left. Gorokov nodded. I know. At the same time, he was finishing reading the transcription of a telephone conversation between Elon Musk and an unknown person. The transcription contained only 6 lines. Hello, Mr. Hutchinson. I've made arrangements with the funeral band. The funeral with the orchestra is scheduled in 2 weeks. The orchestra is experienced. The Russian National Orchestra of the Bolshoi Theater. Yes. Transfers to fake accounts in the Cayman Islands? Yes. With the possibility of revoking the transaction. Will you prepare the crematorium for the orchestra when the time comes? Yes, after they play. Gorokov had a short temper which became more and more difficult to keep in check. As he grew older, he became stubborn, even more cruel and determined. He understood what kind of game Elon Musk was up to, and what kind of place was reserved for him and his team. But he also had significant trump cards. John Wojtowicz was sitting in his office smoking a cigar. Lately he smoked both cigars and cigarettes, and sometimes smoked a newfangled vape with blueberry flavor. And this time, after lighting a cigar and taking a few puffs, he took out an electronic device and blew a powerful puff of steam smoke up to the ceiling. You're already like a steamer, John. Why don't you quit? I understand cigars, but it's pampering. You're not a boy from the Bronx. Wojtowicz chuckled. Boys from the Bronx, Steve, smoke crack, wear their pants down their asses and listen to rap. Nevertheless, he put the electronic vape in the table and turned back to the cigar. The latest reports from our smart guy do not inspire confidence. It is necessary to strengthen control. I had a strong suspicion that Mr. Musk wanted to use the biocomputer in some other way. Stephen nodded. According to the latest data, 3 theses are considered promising areas of use of a biocomputer. The first is the analysis of military events around the world and the selection of optimal solutions. The second is the in-depth forecasting of the stages of human development, in particular the United States. And finally, the third is long-term and sustained contact with extraterrestrial civilizations. Yes, that's right. Report on the case of the underground spacecraft in South Africa. How are the research progressing? Stephen moved away from the wall and took a thin leather folder from the windowsill, laid out several photos from it. This is the inner cavity of the ship at the entrance point. The protection system has been activated. Almost the entire search team was killed, and there were specialists worse than Rambo. Their commander went crazy and shot himself.
Pluto. Neptune. There are only corpses here. The gallery is filled with bodies.
Neptune, what happened? Immediate evacuation. I repeat, immediate evacuation.
Fuck you all.
The next search group was able to reach the necessary quadrant, the control capsule in the bow, but also all died, just disappeared into space. Probably another protection system, but the third group was able to bypass it. A professional hacker worked and was able to hack the system. Amazing, isn't it? But the aliens also use binary information code. The third group is currently on vacation, completely isolated from the outside environment. Their commander is on video, sessions twice a day. Wojtowicz smoked in silence and waited for the continuation. Stephen took out a pack of cigarettes from his eternal black jeans and lit up too. The biocomputer refused to interpret any data from the ship and refused to give an explanation. He simply forbade further attempts at contact. We're walking on a thin blade, John? Wojtowicz frowned. Do not stop exploring the ship. I read the latest report of scientists who informed me in secret from Elon Musk on the study. Wojtowicz handed Summers a folded notebook sheet. answered the surprised look of his subordinate with one word, smiling mysteriously. Conspiracy! Summers grinned and took the paper.
Report. The biocomputer is unstable. Manifests its own will. His ability to read information during telepathic contacts precludes the possibility of hiding any information from him. But we found a way out. Teenagers from 12 to 15 years old are used in experiments. Their brain, saturated with endorphins and dopamines, releases a special psychokinetic energy that can affect the perception of reality by a biocomputer. When a certain amount of energy is supplied, the computer becomes more loyal.
Summers returned the paper. Are they intoxicating him like that? Wojtowicz stubbed out his cigar in an ashtray. I do not know what to call it, but you can do it this way. It's still at the experimental stage. Have you prepared a group of children to use a biocomputer? Summers frowned. Yes, boss, but I dare say I don't like it all. Children, you know? Wojtowicz showed no emotion. We serve the security of the United States, which means that we will do our best. Where was the contingent selected? Summer waved his hand in resignation. Schools for migrants and those who have received a residence permit. Teenagers with a high level of mental development were specially selected. We dispose of them after use. Wojtowicz raised his head in surprise. How do you get rid of them? Summers frowned even more. Have you forgotten, Chief? You yourself ordered to use the services of the Surgical Transplantation Service? Wojtowicz pushed the ashtray on the table away from him and picked up a photograph taken from a spaceship submerged in the bowels of the Earth. Yes, that's right. I'm sorry, Stephen, I'm too busy. What else about the ship? The ship can be classified as a relict. It appeared on our planet back in the era of the birth of mankind, the Stone Age. You know, in Africa, most likely the paleo contact of ancient man and aliens took place. Perhaps they have made some changes to our gene pool. Okay, keep working, Stephen. You're free. Order a car downstairs. I'll be done in an hour. Wojtowicz switched to you instead of the usual you. Stephen knew that at such moments the chief's thoughts were somewhere far away and he was distracted by completely different thoughts. Wojtowicz dreamed of ancient people, but for some reason not in Africa, but on Easter Island. More recently, he received information from the analytical department that contact between representatives of ancient tribes and the race of Grey Roids also once took place on this god-forsaken island. Wojtowicz saw it all as if with his own eyes. Strong, powerful and free people stood in front of their leader, whose head was decorated with letters and feathers of birds. The chief raised his staff and proclaimed among the tribe that inhabited the island. Today we will choose a new leader of the ancient bird people and arrange a competition among the strongest warriors. Who is ready to answer for their clan? The tribe was divided into 5 groups and 1 young man came out from each. The first one screamed in a hoarse voice, I am Kahumiai from the Marama clan, the Mokoi family. From another group, amid cheers and female screeching, a tall, wiry guy whose body was almost completely covered with tattoos came out. I am Honed of the Mwama clan, the Otaranga family. Then, almost immediately, a short, very strong and sturdy guy with long arms whose palms reached almost to his knees, jumped out of the crowd. I am Kinaya from the Hamia clan, the Tiawi family. Immediately, a long-haired, surprisingly white-skinned thin man screamed from the side. He was so thin that his ribs protruded from under his sternum in sharp bumps covered with skin. Fakita is from the Kuta clan, the Hira family. The eldest came out last, looking at the other participants with a smile. His hair was gathered into a high chulpan on his head. He walked slowly, his powerful torso bulged under his strong chest. He clenched his hands into fists, flexed his biceps, and then shouted sharply. I am Gara. The man made a half-turn back, pointing at his blood relatives, and shouted even louder. From the Gatima clan, the Tiko family. The chief raised his staff again and began to shout, calling upon the ancient gods, performing sorcery. But the tribe did not respond with joyful shouts and dances, and a dead silence reigned among the people. The chief fell silent when he saw that all the people were looking down to where the surf was roaring by the rocky shore. He followed their gaze and couldn't believe his eyes. The white canoe was rushing through the water at great speed towards the rock, like a fast sparkling fire. The ancient legends of the ancestors came to life. The gods again arrived on their island in a fast-moving white canoe, which was harnessed to the fire itself. The chief fell to his knees and screamed, dropping saliva on the ground, became hysterical, and realized that the gods had not deceived them and returned, as it had been many generations ago. Voight shook his head, dismissing the vision. It was so real, as if he himself was there, on Easter Island among the ancient tribes with long earlobes. Surprisingly, after working with the biocomputer, such visions visited the head of the Center for Special Research and Operations more and more often. The visions dragged on, became more real and conscious. But Wojtowicz liked it all to some extent. That evening, Stephen did not go home. He dismissed his driver and drove the car to Manhattan. I got there in just an hour and was already climbing the familiar stairs of a small house divided by developers into living quarters. He went up to the 6th floor and knocked on the wooden door, which looked dilapidated but was securely closed from the inside with a metal plate. He knocked 3 times, then paused and knocked 2 more times, ending the series with a last strong knock. The door began to open slowly. Stephen went inside and saw her, Camille Gorup, who smiled and put the gun in her breast holster. "Hi, honey. Are you making me wait again? I'm your bodyguard." Stephen pulled a thin, perfectly built girl to him, immediately habitually put his hands on her elastic buttocks, covered with denim, squeezed it. The girl made a faint sound, but Stephen did not let her say anything, covering her lips with a kiss. He enjoyed it, and then gently pushed the girl away from him. "Gorupe, you are my personal trump card. I don't want to give you another light." He almost always addressed her by her last name. He liked her. The combination of letters was pleasantly on the tip of my tongue. "Gorupe! When will I finally do something worthwhile?" The last exit, to be honest, discouraged me. These are hybrids. I would never have thought that the governments of different countries are engaged in such nonsense. Stephen laughed. "This is just the tip of the iceberg, baby. The very top."
Here you couldn't move. Everything around seemed like some unreal puppets. Then the surroundings started to change. I was lying on a cold table with my legs and arms spread. I wasn't a whistler, but couldn't call a whistler. I lost the ability to see and felt acute pain. We are not sleeping. Did you understand? Down below, in an instant, I saw a gigantic evening-like creature. A crocodile with straight legs. Not far away were 2 more such creatures.
Camilla Gorup woke up much earlier than Summers, got out from under the covers and silently walked into the kitchen, casting a cold glance at the face of her lover and boss, whose bodyguard she was. Did she like him? Maybe, but it definitely wasn't love. At her age, Camilla had an outstanding appearance, was beautiful and dangerous, deadly. But she had long treated sex as a kind of procedure, pleasant and healthy, something like a massage. Men interested her only in 2 qualities, as enemies and as allies. She also understood that Summers, as a man, could not ignore her, and it was obvious that it was not about love or affection. She was needed to perform certain tasks, and frequent sex with Summers in her small apartment is a nice addition. It's nice and quite big, if we talk about the sexual possibilities of her boss. The girl went to the window and, smiling, pulled out a thin cigarette from the pack and lit it. She always stood at the side of the window so that her silhouette would not be visible from the outside. At the same time, the entire space around her was visible from the inside. A professional trait. Suddenly, the phone she had left on the kitchen table yesterday vibrated when Summers brazenly tore her blouse and dragged her into the bedroom amid ringing laughter. Now the phone was vibrating, signaling the arrival of a message. It's strange. Very strange. This phone was only used to communicate with Summers and special agents. Who could it be? The girl read the short message and her heart began to beat faster. Her breath stuck in her throat, not filling her lungs. The girl coughed and took a deep breath, trying to do it as quietly as possible. A message came in Russian, which Camilla knew, albeit imperfectly, but very well. The message said, "Kama, these are peas. How are you, baby? I have a job to do." Another message followed. "Your number was tracked by the communication domain. Smartass, you remember him. I'll send the coordinates. Come to the meeting. Everything will be as you want. The bull is planned." The third message indicated the location of the meeting place. Gorupe massaged her temple with 2 fingers. She knew Major Gorokov back in the days when he was a captain. Under his command, she eliminated 1 Bosnian bandit near Sarajevo. after which she also did something through the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation. By the way, it was Gorokov who ensured that she became one of the international criminals wanted by Interpol. But after that, fate turned everything 180 degrees and she was recruited into a secret unit under the auspices of the United States, forgetting about her past cooperation with Russia. And then the whole Wojtowicz thing. Wojtowicz. She reread the message on her smartphone once more, stopping at the phrase, "The bull is approaching." Is Mr. Wojtowicz himself scheduled to be a bull? The girl shook her head. She heard light footsteps in the hallway and Summers entered the kitchen just as she deleted the last message from Gorokov. Gorokov always woke up early. He had nightmares. In addition, this time he did not rent a separate den for himself, but settled with his people in a dilapidated apartment rented from a German immigrant who apparently sold weed on Brighton Beach in South Brooklyn. That night, he relived that long-ago story that happened in Yugoslavia near the village of Livno, near Sarajevo. The Serbs will never give up trying to retake control of the capital of the Bosnian enclave and now of a separate country, Bosnia. This is now, and in those distant times, Sarajevo had the most natural battles with the use of heavy weapons. The commander of the Special Forces of Military Intelligence, Gorokov Alexander Petrovich, in those early years was ready for anything, was not afraid of anything and no one, was smart, strong and well trained. The raid was ordinary, one might say easy. It was necessary to move out of the location near the monastery, go to the Bosnian Muslims in the rear, kidnap the language and escort it to the place of interrogation. In addition to the Russians in Yugoslavia, there were also 2 Serbs in the unit, as volunteers in quotes. During the battle, Gorokov was shell-shocked and captured. The Bosnians beat him for a long time, mocked him in every imaginable and inconceivable way, threatened with sexual violence almost every 2 minutes. But all the torture stopped when a tall man in a field camouflage uniform entered the stone underground room of the prison. He dispersed the Bosnian guards, put up 2 folding chairs, one for himself, the second for Gorokov. I see that you are not being treated in the best way here. The man who came was an American. For Gorokov it was obvious, the accent, the way he spoke, and who else could be here besides the Americans so using power over the Bosnians, who unquestioningly obeyed his order and fuck off. Gorokov spat bloody saliva on the concrete floor and a fragment of a tooth flew out along with sputum. The man wheezed. "Fuck you, bitch." The American smiled. "Well, it's all lyrics, sir. Let me introduce myself. I am the commander of the Special Operations Forces, Senior Sergeant Instructor John Wojtowicz, U.S. Army. Yes, don't be surprised, we don't hide it. The entire international community is aware of our assistance to the Bosnians in the struggle for independence and democracy." Gorokov sat down on a chair and grinned at these words. However, Wojtowicz also grinned at them. "I have a very definite proposal for you. Your life will depend on your loyalty. So, we are not even interested in your name and rank. We know them. Your entire group was handed over to us by Serbs from the Republika Srpska Operations Planning Headquarters in Bosnia and Herzegovina. One small service is required of you." Gorokov looked from under his brows with an eye that was still swollen from a bruise. "What kind of service?" Wojtowicz took out a pack of cigarettes, lit one himself, and offered a cigarette to Gorokov. "You see, formally, we cannot introduce NATO troops into the territory of Serbia. We need a precedent, and a precedent related to the victims among Muslims in the border areas with Serbia. We want you to set this precedent. We will cordon off several villages, ensure tightness. You will lead a group of Serbian volunteers. Yes, 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 do not be surprised. We have it and arrange a sweep of these villages. Special cruelty is needed. Then the footage of the atrocities of the bloodthirsty Serbs will be broadcast on all TV channels around the world, murdered and mauled women, children, and their elderly." Gorokov cleared his throat. His bruised lungs ached from the tobacco smoke. "Why do you need me in this case?" Wojtowicz smiled, an open, kind smile, but his eyes were colder than ice. "And with your help, we will prove the intervention of the Russian Federation in the internal conflict of the republics of the once united Yugoslavia. Do you understand? I see your determination to refuse, but think about it. Take your time. Everything can end badly for you. A portable video camera with a display was brought into the concrete chamber. Wojtowicz picked up the camera, opened the side display and pressed play. Gorokov watched without stopping, recognizing on the video his fellow soldier named Sergei. He was sitting on a chair, his hands were tied or chained behind his back. Vojtovich stood in front of him and offered about the same thing as a minute ago to Gorokov. Sergei refused, and then Vojtovich went behind him, abruptly pulled a knife from a sheath on his belt, and a few minutes later lifted the severed head of a captured soldier by the hair and showed it to the camera. Gorokov looked at all this with a dumbfounded look, and Vojtovich's voice brought him out of his stupor. "You can change your destiny. Think about it." Blood rushed to Gorokov's head. He rushed at Vojtovich, cursing furiously. But the American used a technique unknown to the special forces and knocked the man over on the concrete floor. In the first moments, Gorokov thought that his arm was broken. Then they miraculously managed to escape from the underground prison. By a miracle, Bosnian guards got drunk, which gave them a chance to escape. And now a bizarre fate brought him back to Vojtovich, whom he had almost forgotten about. Vojtovich had aged. He had aged, but his cold eyes were still as penetrating and prickly as ever. Death itself looked at the young Gorokov in that underground prison with these eyes. Elon Musk himself took the test subject standing on a sunny paved area. The bus entered the campus behind the research ground. Elon Musk didn't like these trips very much because he had to get to the place by helicopter for about 5 hours. Nevertheless, he was here. At the training ground, he was ready. Children of different sexes were descending from the bus onto the paved patch. The youngest was 12. He was alone. And the oldest was 15. The rest were 13 and 14 each. There are only 5 of them, 2 boys and 3 girls. They were the winners of the regional chess and math rodeo competitions in Juneau and Lustaga. Elon Musk, dressed in a light shirt and loose-fitting white canvas trousers, smiled warmly. "Welcome, my dears. You, as winners of intellectual competitions, as the future of our country, honored me with your visit. Let me welcome you." He went up to each boy and shook their hands. He did not touch the girls, but simply greeted them with words. We are pleasantly surprised by what smart people and clever girls were brought up in boarding schools and orphanages in Juneau. We are pleasantly surprised. Well, today we will have a busy day. First, we will all ride a Tesla, and then we will take a tour of the nanotechnology laboratory. All of you will be presented with memorable gifts from me personally, as the founder of the intellectual competitions. Before the Tesla ride and the tour, all the children were taken to the cafeteria, from where, 10 minutes later, their unconscious but living bodies were lowered on oblong gurneys to the underground floor of the laboratories. Musk walked along the vertical flasks with people placed in them. Thin and thick cables stretched from their heads towards the central glass prism with the giant brain of a biocomputer. Mr. Musk. The scientist was hailed by a doctor from the Experimental Preliminary Training Service. All 5 children have been prepared, trepanation and craniotomy have been performed. The final stage of preparation of brain regions is being carried out before installing cable leads. But there is a problem. The experimental Sarah Rachers has epilepsy. It was discovered during a light and sound test. What should I do? Elon Musk grimaced and raised his voice. I've told you many times, Culp, there are no children, but test subjects are just test subjects. And no names, they have been assigned numbers. What to do? Prepare a drug from her brain. We will test the neurostimulating liquid on it, which is filled with flasks with drugs. Recently, the effect of stimulation has been decreasing. Vojtovich was beside himself with rage. He knocked over a computer monitor on the floor and then turned over the table itself without worrying at all about the secret data and documents on the table. Then he grabbed an ashtray and threw it against the wall. The ashtray did not break immediately. Then Vojtovich ran to the wall, picked up the ashtray and threw it again, but this time on the floor. Summers watched the boss's rampage with a slight smile, but it was necessary to stop all this. John, pull yourself together. I'm your bodyguard and assistant. Everything is done on time and on time. We have taken measures. There is nothing more to fear. Vojtovich sat down on a chair by a fallen table and pulled back the collar of his uniform shirt. That bitch you fucked, Agent Gorupe. You should have doused her back then. Give it to the guys from the Special Forces and then wet it. I knew it. I felt it. Summers chuckled. I beat her up as well as a SWAT team myself. I had her phone under control, however. I was surprised how she could not guess. I relaxed. The message came from a certain Gorokov. Vojtovich looked up. Something floated in his memory like a distant ghost, dimly lit up and went out again. Summers continued. But it's not about him. It's about our smart guy. This is an act of defiance and an attempt to get out of control. Out of your control, John. Do you understand? He ordered you... I understand. Summers. How did you find out about this? Stephen, Wojtowicz's bodyguard, said cheerfully, but did not smile. You won't believe it. I saw it in a dream. Visions. Everything was thoroughly demonstrated. After I checked her phone through our TechCom, they count crows there. Imagine they saw the message from Gorokov, but thought it was the agents who got in touch. Can you imagine? Well, I checked her phone and the puzzle came together. Wojtowicz scratched his head, looking around the trashed office in surprise. I couldn't believe that he had done all this. Summers. When is the meeting between the former agent of the group and this Gorokova? Something stirred in my memory again. Summers looked at his watch. In 2.5 hours. Should I send the group? No, in a different way. To arrest Camille Gorup and subject her consciousness to a change, to put in a program. You know which one. As for the smart guy, the external surveillance service reported that there are scandals in their family between Ilon and his son Xavier. We use this. Put the program in his son. For murder! Wojtowicz was silent for a few seconds, then shook his head negatively. No. Summers, come back in 10 minutes. I will write down what needs to be done and what impact programs to use. You won't be able to mess with the group for a long time, so use a combination of induced hypnosis and stimulants. Gorokov was sitting on a bench in Brooklyn Bridge Park. He was perfectly disguised. A long-haired blonde wig sat well on his bald head. He was dressed in a long female raincoat and blue jeans. From the outside, it might seem that a huge woman or a transvestite was sitting on the bench. But he didn't care. He was waiting for the meeting. Gorokov knew perfectly well who the group was working for. He knew that this cruel bitch was terribly fond of money, right to the point of greed, and she was faithful to them alone. Through her, he intended to get close to Wojtowicz. Perhaps there could be an intermediate link, but he intended to find out about this in the course of a further conversation with Camille. He saw her on the bike path, walking openly, without fear of anything, slowly towards the bench. Gorokov sat without expressing any emotions. It was strange that she was walking like that, casually, but he waited. Not reaching 5 meters to the bench, Camilla took a pistol from the pocket of her white sports jacket and emptied almost the entire clip into Gorokov. The girl shot herself with the last bullet. 3 days later, the Daily Mail news channel was full of very interesting headlines, the first of which was the following.
Elon Musk's son Xavier has finally changed his gender. The body has undergone irreversible changes. The desire to change gender was voluntary and long cherished.
Elon Musk himself, the next morning, beside himself with anger at his son, saw a photo on the table. The heads of 4 men were clearly visible on it. The first of them belonged to Gorokov. The phone rang immediately. Elon Musk picked up the phone with a trembling hand and heard the familiar voice of Wojtowicz. You have upset us very much, Mr. Smart Guy.